Folks, I guess it's time for us to get going. And as usual, lots to discuss. And for our top news, people have been disturbed by a robot that has ultra-realistic human face expressions. In technology, Stellantis wants to outfit cars with AI to drive up revenue, including using voice commands to activate navigation. In agriculture, they're now devising new meat alternatives with 3D printing and cocoa butter. Ha! And something that I don't think I'll understand, and Richard will tell us a little bit more.
If he understands.
Technologies, superconductivity meets spintronics. We'll see what he has to say about that. In flight, the China moon rover will investigate a cube-shaped mystery object on the lunar far side. In biology, the world's vast networks of underground fungi are being mapped for the first time. And did you know, says Richard, that if you put all of the world's fungal networks end to end, they would stretch halfway across our galaxy. And now what people were talking about at the beginning about a scale, a 7-item wisdom scale, a fast way to see if you're wise. And in health, scientists have now identified the factor in young blood that helps rejuvenate aging muscle. So I think Richard is saying we don't have to get on top of our grandsons to help do this. And that's what we'll discuss today. So Richard, tell us about the top story that people are disturbed by a robot with ultra-realistic human face expressions.
Well, humanoid robots have been a big deal for years in science fiction movies. We had RoboCop and many others. And now these human-like robots are becoming a reality. And this latest one from Engineered Arts is the most realistic yet. The robot head named Adrian has 22 different custom actuators just for its head that allow it to move its eyes and mouth like a human. And there's a video that I want to show you of this. So let me bring it up. Here we have Adrian, and let me start it. He winks at you and yawns. He's just woke up. And thank you for the smile. Uh-oh, somebody's made him suspicious. Okay, he's going back to sleep. So that is the most human-like one that I've seen. And the mouth movements, though they still have to move on, they only have 5 actuators around the mouth. And because of that, they can't, they can't fully lip sync. So they still have to work with Adrian so he can lip sync, and people who can read their lips can tell what he's saying. And this is a part of a series that Engineered Art has made, and they call this series Mesmer, and it's a system for building robotic humanoid robots that are powerful and cost effective, and they can display the range of emotions like you saw there. And the good part is they can be customized to look like anyone. They make high-tech molds and then 3D print the molds and touch them up by hand and just slide the face over the robot. And, then I don't know, maybe you can have your long lost brother come back as a Mesmer robot. I don't know what you would use them for, but this is not the first time that this company has made this robot, and they announced another one earlier this year. Let me show you that one. It's kind of similar, but different. Here, this one is not just a head. This has the shoulders, and you should notice when it wakes up, then it stretches its shoulders as it's getting going. No, I'm awake now. Okay, huh? Look around. Look at my hands. Okay. Oh, I have hands. Oh, it's surprised to see us. So that's a new level of these robots, and it turns out that they're human enough that it really disturbs some people. Some people love them, some people it bothers. I don't know what you feel about humanoid robots that wink at you. I think I like it. Now, we are in a time where these robots are going to be a big part of the changes that happen in the next few years. And there are going to be jobs at risk in this, and the physical jobs in predictable environments, including things like machine operators and fast food operators, will be among the first that are replaced by robots. And then there are whole big areas of collecting and processing data that robots can do better than people. And this is going to end up at least displacing a lot of workers, like, for example, in mortgages and paralegal work and in accounting and in transaction processing. And the jobs that are the safest are the ones that are unpredictable jobs. And they say there are some occupations like gardeners and plumbers and healthcare and childcare providers that will be relatively immune from robots for a while, partially because they are technically difficult to automate, and also because these are low paid workers, so they're not worth automating. I don't know how I would feel if I were working in a job that is not worth automating. I don't know what that would say about it, but this looks like more of a robot future than I had thought of, and I'm really impressed by what these humanoid robots can do. How would you like one?
I did see, and just before we started with this program, Elon Musk also has a robot. But his doesn't have a face on it. Looks like it's over it. But he showed, it could dance and do all sorts of human things. And I mean, it's totally frightening. But, and he was saying that, you could have a robot standing by and say you're in bed and you tell it, go and get you a cup of coffee or something like that.
That's right.
All these sort of things. He was more thinking of using robots that men like to attach nuts and bolts, to mechanism of some sort like in a factory. I can't help but think that wouldn't that be cheaper and simpler just to have an automated process rather than having an automated process that looks like a human being.
Richard, I was wondering where you, on your story, it says people are disturbed. What's this disturbance?
The disturbance is still part of it is the confusion, I think, between a robot and a human, and the robot is not perfect yet. I don't think in terms of imitating humans. And from what I understand, if you see something that's almost human and kind of pretending to be human, it bothers you more than if it is a good fake. I don't really know. Here I'm just imagining, because even though that was the headline in the story, they didn't talk about it in the story.
Yeah, interesting.
These headline writers want to get clicks.
Well, one of the things that's missing with a robot is that they have no feelings.
Unless they're programmed to.
I don't think they have any programs for that.
Not yet. They're working on it. One of the parts of robotic development is development of, for example, the sense of touch. And so there's a lot of work going on there so they can start to interact with you tactically. And now what if you had a nice robotic hand reach out and hold your hand? Or pet your dog. You could have the robot pet your dog if you were too busy.
But the other side of feelings, in terms of what John is saying, is consciousness, and and we always call that the hard problem of consciousness. Right. We don't really understand really what it is, and the question is it possible that you can make robots that do have consciousness or not? And I expect that's going to be an ongoing discussion for some time.
And we have to figure out, of course, what consciousness is, because if we can't make robots that are conscious, then we'll be wondering if we can make robots that act like their consciousness, that can simulate consciousness. So we can't tell.
And so we can't tell. They'll pass the Turing test, but probably without being conscious.
Right.
On Richard, what's this about Stellantis putting AI in cars?
This is a more complete announcement than I had read before, and I guess they're making it official. To start with, is there anybody on this call that has any idea who Stellantis is? I think they're the third biggest car maker in the world.
Fiat, Chrysler, Peugeot.
That's right. You get the gold star.
Well, and I didn't know it until I read it in this article and looked it up.
Okay.
I'd never heard of them.
I had heard of them before, and actually with an early version of this same story. That they also include a bunch of minor brands like Alfa Romeo and things like that. But anyway, so they officially announced their strategy a week ago to embed AI enabled software in 34 million vehicles across its 14 brands. So they're going to go big. And the thing is that they hope that this kind of technical upgrade to their car platforms will end up bringing in $20 billion a year by 2030. So they're not doing it for a hobby. They're doing it for a way where they think they can get not only more of your money, but more of your money every month. We like that. And to do this now, they are calling themselves a quote, sustainable mobility tech company. And I think that's a new market segment. And one of the things I learned about from being a marketing guy is if you want to be the leader, then create some segment that you're the biggest in, and then you're number one. Anyway, they're number one in this segment, I believe, and they think they're going to have business growth coming from features and services tied to the internet. And these things include things like giving voice commands to activate navigation. And somehow they think they're going to get their people to use their system for making payments and ordering products. But, there are a lot of other companies in those businesses. So I think it may not be easy. They're expanding partnerships with BMW on partially automated driving, and phone manufacturer Foxconn is working with them for customized cockpits. And I think one of the things that we will see from multiple manufacturers are these places where you insert your phone and your phone becomes part of your car's electronics. They are also partnering with Waymo to work with autonomous driving for light commercial delivery vehicles. And this is part really of a broad transformation in the auto industry, because as the cars themselves become more fully electric and are using computers, they are trying to figure out how to bring those computers out in more customer facing ways. And the cars are going to be connected to the internet anyway, so we might as well be using it. And Ford and General Motors are also planning dramatically increased revenue from similar online subscription services. And again, there's going to be lots of competition for this and more companies fighting for your dollar. Now they're fighting for your subscription dollar instead of just your purchase dollar. They want you to give them money all the time. And some of the things they're doing, of course, Tesla is already doing. One of those things they're talking about is live updates that provide increased services and power and capability. Some of the things they're talking about, I think, are kind of cool. One of the features is something that would automatically park your car when you look at a parking place and then nod your head in the right way, it'll go park your car there. Of course, they have it that'll close your garage door too. I think the automated parking is cooler than that, though. And Stellantis is confident that people will want to buy their services related to these vehicles despite the competition. And they already have a little business doing this revenue on software services. They actually have $400 million a year in present business. I didn't know there was that much present business. And they're going to expand this auto manufacturer is going to expand their software engineering team from 1,000 to almost 5,000 people. So they're serious about it. And one other thing they've done is they've announced a new partnership with Foxconn to develop and produce semiconductors that will cover 80% of the company's needs. So they've decided, given the semiconductor crisis, to partner deeply with one of the major manufacturers to assure their supply. So these days in the car business are looking a lot different than the old days of the car business. Everyone is trying to figure out what to do to survive and prosper in this new environment. Stellantis is spending lots of money on it and have made it their core strategy. And, you know, tune back in a decade and we'll see who's still standing.
Any thoughts?
I wonder what they're going to offer actually that isn't already there. You know, about maybe 4 years ago, I was in Holland visiting my brother, and we had to go to a cousin of mine. Anyway, it was a little better than 4 hours away by car. And so he just flipped the switch on his cell phone and put it in a holder. And there's a very pleasant looking or sounding rather female voice that told him exactly where to go. And what really got me is that on the way were some places where there were either traffic jams or an accident or whatever. And they would warn you for that and would lead you right around it in real time.
Yes.
That is 4 years ago.
Yes.
So how much more can they possibly sell you in terms of services? Unless it's going to be supervised driving where you just push a button, the car does all the rest, and only when things maybe become hairy, you might push another button.
Yeah, I kind of wonder too, but we hear they're talking about features like now you won't have to do all that work to turn the steering wheel. You can tell your car to turn right and it'll do it. And then again, I personally really like the automated parking feature because I'm not nearly as good a parallel parker as I used to be. And I bet their automated parking system would work whichever side of the street the parking spaces were on.
The automated parking that I have in my Teslas and earlier don't accommodate the narrow streets that we have in Ahihee.
Okay.
Accommodate normal streets.
Okay. So they need an upgrade. They need an Ahihee upgrade.
And maybe too, they'll have something that when there are no parking spots, it'll drive around the block until you come out.
Perfect.
Well, Tesla already has Summon, where wherever you park, you press a button and the car comes to you.
But it won't have it just orbit around the street if you can't park.
You know, when you have a yacht, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea there, Andrew.
Yeah, I read somewhere that if you have a yacht, you can automatically moor this thing, or whatever they call it. You know,
you can park your yacht, huh?
exactly. Automatically.
Richard, I own a Nissan Leaf EV, and they've been trying to sell me an entertainment package that I would pay for monthly. I have not subscribed to it because I don't like that system. So I think a lot of car manufacturers, they try that.
Yeah.
I think you're right that one of the things will be onboard entertainment systems to occupy the person who used to have to drive. That's going to be something they have trouble with the regulators about because the regulators like to have driver paying a little attention to the road.
Nissan now contracts its driving assist to Mobileye, which is owned by Intel, and Intel is going to do an IPO on it. Mobileye is used by a number of automobile manufacturers for driver's assist. Now
Okay,
it's by Nissan.
right. And again, certainly this is going to be an enormous business, and there are a lot of people targeting different aspects of that business. And that's part of what I mean by, wait 10 years and then we'll find out who's still around. There are going to be a lot of people who are trying to do it that are not around, and there will be some companies that are giant winners that we haven't even heard of today.
Several years ago, The Economist reported 100 years ago, they said electricity was the next big thing. 100 years later, they said of those who were in the electricity business 100 years ago, few survived.
Right. Yes. Do any? I would wonder. Yeah.
Well,
So-
Richard, we want to move along. Tell us about 3D printing of meat.
Well, I knew it was coming, and now here it shows up. Fake meat is becoming a bigger and bigger business, and it's available in restaurants and grocery stores and lots of places. And because it's a growing area, then there are more options that are going to be available all the time. And so one team of food scientists has developed a new combination of plant-based ingredients that are tailored for 3D printing. And the one odd thing that they had to do it to get it just right is they had to use cocoa butter to print your 3D meat. I don't understand exactly how that goes, but the problem in printing 3D meat is whatever you're printing with has to be fluid enough to print it out. And then after you print it, it has to harden with room temperature heat, so it becomes a kind of consistency that people associate with food. And so anyway, they studied different plant-based proteins. Most of the current meat alternatives rely on most often soy and wheat proteins. And so they were trying to figure out an approach to make a meat dough 3D printed from soy and wheat proteins. And they tested lots of different formulations using different kind of ingredients, and this formula using the cocoa butter is what was most successful in terms of holding its form and having the right texture and microstructure that it would be suitable. Now they've tried to replace the soy protein with pea protein because, there are lots of people that have issues with soy protein because of allergy and things like that. So they tried to find another substitute. The pea protein so far was too soft to print, so it didn't work. But they have at this point identified a new approach to producing meat substitute products, and they are excited on it and still continuing to work on it. I don't know when we're going to see this as commercial in products, but I am sure it will be coming. And to me, it seems like a perfect product for the Bisley family. You get home and you're tired, you don't have energy to go to the store, and you just have your printer print you up some dinner.
Any thoughts?
Well, the printer has to be fed some ingredients in order to come out with the product. I
Sure.
mean, that come through the internet.
That's right. You have to have your tube of protein paste and your flavoring kit.
Exactly right.
They'll have them. They already do. I know they've been experimenting with that stuff.
Well, it doesn't sound very appealing to me.
What I want my 3D food printer to print it where it's already cooked. You know, why can't you do that? You know, I don't know how you would do it technically, but you know, why have another step in the process?
Well, you know, why don't they produce something that's already been eaten?
They could. We call it I'm not sure what we call it, but I don't want to say it on the radio show, on the TV show.
We call it politics.
Okay.
Well, they're at least full of it.
So Richard, what's this green information technology with superconductivity and spintronics? What's that about?
Well, I've just been waiting for this story. I know you have too. And the basis of this is it turns out when you have two superconducting regions that are close to each other, but only separated by a tiny strip, like a two-dimensional strip of some non-superconducting material, then you end up getting a special quantum effect that couples both regions, even though they don't touch each other. And this is called the Josephson effect. And you may have heard of Josephson junctions. And these are things that are very high tech. They're used presently in things like squids. Have you heard of squids? They're superconducting quantum interface devices, and they're used in science and engineering now. And they think this Josephson junction can make superconducting single electron transistors. And, you know, while you're trying to make transistors small, making them single electron is as small as we can conceive of now. And these Josephson junction devices are used in superconducting quantum computer designs. The thing about the Josephson junction is that current flows continuously between the two elements of the Josephson junction, but it's basically current that flows without any kind of loss and at near perfect efficiency. So these are ways to make these components and make them very high efficiency using little energy. All you have to do is use these quantum effects with your handy two superconductors and you got it. And what they found, so that incomprehensible material is the background. And then the story is that they have figured out how to use a what they call a half ferromagnet material for the separating layers. It's a half ferromagnet because it is only using one type of spin electrons, and generally magnetism comes from pairs of electrons with opposite spins. So it's a half because you only have half a magnet. I don't know how that having half a magnet works either, but that's the kind of idea. And superconducting currents flow without resistance, which makes them very appealing for low power consumption. And this kind of device opens up immense opportunities for superconducting spintronics, because in this layer in between the two superconductors with the half ferromagnet, you can manipulate the spin and use the spin manipulation to store and read data. And so you turn it like into this superconducting thing that's like a transistor, like a switch that has two different states on and off. But what you're really switching back and forth is the spin of an individual electron around some atom. And we think we can use those to be able to store and information and process information at much higher efficiencies and lower power use than we do now. And so all it takes is these two superconducting devices next to each other and the thin layer of the half ferromagnet, and you got it.
Any thoughts?
Big.
Anybody who knows anything of what I said?
Under the fog is.
The world was an easier place to understand when spintronics was just the self-serving pronouncements of politicians.
That's right. Or what happened in the washing machine when you put your cat in it. No, excuse me, that's a dryer that you put your cat in.
Well, Richard, if we want to move along to the China moon rover, what's this about a mystery that they're wanting to see on the lunar far side?
Well, things can get strange. And here, let me see if I can bring up the picture. If you look at this picture in the middle of that circle, there looks like there's some square box. And so the Chinese rover has been roving around the moon now for almost 2 years. And a few days ago, off in the distance, they saw this structure, which looks like a square structure rising from the backside of the moon. And they don't know what it is. This is so far the best photo that is available. And this is not very high resolution image. And where they are is this photo is from 80 meters away. You know, that's not very far. That's like 250 feet. So it's not very far. And they plan to send their lunar rover over to get a closer look at it. And I think it says something about the lunar rover and its power system is that it's going to take it 3 days to be able to make that 80-meter drive. And so we know the lunar rover is solar powered. And I guess there's a lot of sun on the moon. The sun to the moon is about the same distances from the Earth, so that's not the issue. Maybe they have small solar cells out there, or maybe they just have a small battery. I don't know. It can only move about 25 meters a day, which isn't much of a range. But anyway, it's kind of fascinating. Here we are on the moon, and here is this rectangular object rising out of the moon, and we don't know what it is. We at least have mystery for now. They think, to kind of bust the mystery, is the most likely explanation is that it's some kind of boulder, a rock, because this part of the moon has lots and lots of impact craters. And when you have impacts, it ejects some material. And maybe this is just a lump of moon rock from one of those. They don't know. They got to go look. They saw this about 4 days ago, and I expect that soon we will see close-up photos.
Any thoughts?
Well, one of the things, Richard, that you didn't mention is that this lunar rover is operating on the dark side of the moon.
Right.
It has a limited amount of exposure to the sun, and that's why, they cannot.
Now, the backside of the moon still has the same amount of exposure as the front side of the moon. It's just the backside of the moon because it's on the other side of the moon away from us. And the moon orbits has one rotation day, so it keeps the backside facing away from us. But half the time it's in the sun.
I had the impression that the amount of sun there was more limited than the side that we see.
Anyway, it's part of the adventure that we're on. And one of the things that can be exciting about the adventure is we find new things. And I think most likely it is just a rock, but you never know. Maybe Stanley Kubrick was there.
It's also amazing that this rover is still going. It's been there for what, 2 or 3 years now?
Yes, it's been there for 2 years. And let's see, at 25 meters a day, that means it can have gone how long? 3 miles?
Well,
I don't know. I'm just guessing.
So, Richard, if we want to move on from taking camera shots of something on the moon to taking mapping of our underground fungi here, what's that all about?
Well, it's a big story for the mushroom folks. And, it turns out that fungi are still this third major group of living beings on the planet besides plants and animals. In between them are fungi, and mostly they don't get much attention except when you're trying to do something like brew your beer or make your bread. The yeast are fungi, so we use them there. But besides what we use above ground, there are vast networks of underground fungi, and some people call them, quote, the circulatory system of the planet. And they call them that because these fungi use carbon to build networks in the soil, and they use these networks to exchange carbon and phosphorus between themselves, and also to provide them to plant roots. And now they're going to make an attempt for the first time really to map them. There is some hope that if they map them and do some work, they can figure out how to get them to absorb more carbon dioxide. But these networks are extensive. And like I said in the hot science, they believe that the networks, if you put them end to end, would go halfway across our galaxy. Now, that's a lot of fungal roots, if you ask me. And so anyway, so this is a new project from the Society for the Protection of Underground Networks. Have you heard of them? Anyway, they're spun, and they're going to be collecting 10,000 samples from around the world. And one of their leading advisors, who is Jane Goodall, I guess when she's not working with chimpanzees, she's advising fungal network people. And she says, quote, an understanding of the underground fungal networks is essential to our efforts to protect the soil on which life depends before it's too late. And this is basically the first effort to map the system. And some of the issues that are involved that are actually fairly critical to our planet in this cycle is the modern industrial agriculture uses vast quantities of chemical fertilizer, which really messes up these fungal networks. And the thing is that these fungal networks are very beneficial to the plants, and without them, the plants require more chemicals and are more vulnerable. And further, the mechanical plowing in modern agriculture also damages the integrity of the fungal networks and makes it all work worse. And so there are methods of no-till agriculture that are being adopted in America now that lets you farm without messing up the soil. When you don't mess up the soil, then you preserve the fungal network that helps your plants grow better. So maybe we, as we are studying fungi, can learn to make better use of their capabilities to help us feed ourselves and survive. So watch out for the fungus, and it looks like a little fungus goes a long way.
Any thoughts?
Yes, they're studying a part in South America called Patagonia, which is the southern part of Argentina from the province of Buenos Aires to the Antarctica. And it's very interesting. My sister has a farm in the northern part with some of the most fertile earth in Argentina. They're also studying in Mexico, on the plateau of Mexico. And they have circled an area which, interestingly, has Guadalajara in the middle.
I didn't realize that. I know they're studying an area in Mexico is one of the 10 most fungal rich places on the planet.
I think that's maybe why we get a lot of berries from south of Guadalajara.
Well, certainly the fungi is good for the plants.
Well, it may emerge that the fungus is really the intelligent being and we're just the fleas on the back of the fungus.
That's right. That's right. I just hope the fungus doesn't scratch us off.
So Richard, are you going to tell us how we can find out how wise we are?
I'm not only going to tell you, I'm going to give you a self-test. So right now, everybody take a minute and see if you can find a piece of paper and a pencil, and you're going to take a self-administered test. There'll be 7 questions. So write down on the paper the numbers 1 through 7 going down, and you will put your answers next to them. And okay, now we have people coming back. And so I'll start to talk, and then it turns out that they believe that wisdom is a modifiable personality trait. And at least the test people say that there are 7 components of wisdom that can be measured in a self-test vehicle. And originally they developed this test as a 28-item survey, but they would like to go bigger with this kind of test to see what's going on. And so they have reduced it to 7 questions, 1 from each of the 7 areas. One of the issues that they had in building this test, though, was, what are the markers for wisdom? And one of the things that was most debated about this is originally the test did not include spirituality, because a lot of people think, and I might think that too, if I look at some, I don't want to say the name of the religions, but I might think that that's not a sign of wisdom, being in that religion. Anyway, some of those religions are very popular in the southern United States. Anyway, they argued very much about it and did some further research, and their research showed that spirituality is actually significantly associated with better mental health and well-being, and may add to a person's overall wisdom. So they included it in the test. They tried to do it in ways that are absolutely non-sectarian, as you'll see from the question in the survey. And what they tried to do with the test is to be able to administer it, like I said, is reduce it, their original 28 questions to 7 questions. And I'm going to put those questions up on the screen right now. And excuse me while I put it, okay, now I have the questions up on the screen. And answer these questions using a scale from 1 to 5, where 1 is you strongly agree and 1 is you strongly disagree. So a 1 is a big no and a 5 is strongly agree. The first question is, I tend to postpone making major decisions as long as I can. Do you postpone the decision or make it fast? Again, 5 is yes, 1 is no. The second question is, I avoid self-reflection. I think we might know what Trump's score is on that. Trump would get a 5 on that, I believe. The third question is, I avoid situations where I know my help will be needed. So do you run away from situations where they're going to ask you for help or money, or do you go into them? Number 4, is I often don't know what to tell people when they come to me for advice. Again, 1 is no and 5 is yes. Number 5 is I remain calm under pressure. Number 6 is I enjoy being exposed to diverse viewpoints. That's a question for us Unitarians. Number 7 is my spiritual belief gives me inner strength. No is 1, 5 is very yes. Okay, now if you have your questions, let's score them. The first 4 questions are negatively worded. So the way you score them is you invert your score. And so if you scored a 5, you recorded as a 1. You got that? So you do that for the first 4 questions, and then you just add up the score on the 7 items. If you are perfectly wise, you'll get a 35. Now, has everybody got their scores? Is anybody willing to tell us?
I think I got 15.
Okay. Well, you're right in the middle of the road.
Yeah, I got 25.
All right. We knew that about you, Andrew.
No, it's just an ability to fool myself.
I'm not, what question number was that?
Yeah.
That was number 8. Come on, we must have some more mathiacs out there to give us a score. Make sure before you tell us your score, you turn your microphone on.
What did you get, Richard?
I'll wait till you guys.
I had a 17.
Okay. Okay. So you're like John, but better.
This is just for the first 4 questions, right?
Yeah, negative for the first 4 sections. That confused me a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think of it as invert.
But you want us to add up all 7 numbers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, the number of your answers, not the number of the questions. So that would be 7 factorial. No, it wouldn't.
Well, then
That's if you multiply them.
my score changes to 28 then.
I'm sorry?
If we had the last 3 questions and we don't invert anything, then my score becomes 28.
Okay. Okay, I would believe that more. Okay, any more scores? We're waiting.
Unfortunately, inverting the first 4, I came out with a sum of 19.
Okay,
Not so wise.
not, but reliable. Okay, how about you, Fred? Are you going to say or not?
25.
25? 35.
30.
Okay, I ended up getting 32. It was I brought the test though, and I wouldn't give you a test where I scored bad on.
Wise guy, right?
Well,
And I thought the question number 4 was kind of ambiguous. It's hard to, because if you don't hesitate to give people advice, does that mean you put down a 1 or a 5? I don't know.
that's well, right. I often don't know if you don't hesitate to give them advice. That would be a 1. If you
Yeah,
give
that-
advice real fast, it's a 1. If you give advice real fast, they might not like you.
And they tend to think it's better to make snap judgments rather than to spend some time thinking about it.
That's right. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting test and it's an interesting exercise, and I have no idea of what it tells you.
Richard, there's a lot of these, like test your IQ.
Yes,
100 different ones.
of
I
course.
question the wisdom of the people who devise this, and I question the IQ of the people who make the IQ test.
Well,
So
of
I'm
course,
skeptical.
of course. And I question any of these guys' ability to put any human being into any box.
The other thing you can question is the IQ of anyone who takes the test.
Okay. Oh no. Okay. I took it first. Anyway, I thought that would be an interesting exercise for us. And so now, then, shall we go back to the last question?
Well, Rich,
Good
what
idea.
is this factor in young blood that helps rejuvenate aging muscle? And is it true?
Yes. Now, as we age, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of this, but as we age, our muscles gradually become smaller and weaker and less able to heal after injury. And researchers at the University of Pittsburgh tried to pinpoint exactly how that happens, what the mediator is, and they identified one in mouse muscles, and of course they believe it'll work in humans too, because our muscle system is really the same. And this discovery could advance muscle regeneration therapy for older people. And so what they were able to do was demonstrate that in the body there are circulating shuttles called extracellular vesicles, or EVs, and these EVs deliver genetic instructions to the individual cells. And one of the things that they deliver is instructions for the longevity protein that's known as clotho to the muscle cells. And loss of muscle function turns out to be driven by aged EVs, which carry fewer copies of these instructions to our cells. So our cells don't repair and regenerate as well. And what they were able to do is they were able to test the effectiveness of these EVs and establish that those were the things that were benefiting the old mice with the blood of young mice. What they did was they then, from the mice, collected serum from the mice, from young mice, and injected this serum into old mice, and the serum has a number of blood particles in it, and included were the EVs. And when they injected the serum into the old mice became young and chipper again. But when they injected serum from which they had removed the EVs, it didn't make any difference. So they believe that's positive evidence that EVs are the active mechanism in this rejuvenation of the cells. And they did further work, and they found that these EVs actually deliver genetic instructions, mRNA, that encodes this anti-aging protein clotho into the muscle pre-generator cells. These are the muscle stem cells that grow the new cells. And that when it does this, then these cells are better able to repair themselves and take care of themselves. And they also understood that with increasing age, the reason that muscle doesn't heal as well is that after damage, it creates scar tissue rather than regenerating the original muscle structure. And when you have more clotho, then it regenerates the muscle tissues. So that's the idea behind it. And the new study generates for the first time that age-related shifts in EVs contribute to depleted clotho. And this suggests that these EVs can be developed into new therapies to heal damaged tissue. I wonder if it can also be a new therapy to rejuvenate general old muscle tissue. That's what I would like. I'd like some rejuvenation. I bet you would too, except for Fred, who works so hard, he's as rejuvenated as he gets already. Now, and they are particularly excited about the idea is that they can engineer these EVs with specific mRNA cargo so that they can direct the response of target cells. And besides their hope for EVs to help reverse muscular effects of aging, it has been demonstrated that young blood also can boost cognitive performance of aged mice, like the muscle performance. And now they have a grant to study this part of the mechanism or possible mechanisms of cognitive decline. And the same kind of approach may be able to be used to reverse the effects of the cognitive decline. So how about that?
Richard, as part of my process of rejuvenation, Norman and I have been trying to get together who are some of these young people from whom we could get blood transfusions. And does this article that you have here mean that those people no longer have to worry about us taking their blood?
It'll be a while before it's in the market. They still ought to keep their children locked up when you're around.
But there's probably a lot of mice that ought to be worried.
That's right. So far, I don't know about mice to human transplants. They've had a lot of success in other areas with transplants from pigs. I don't think they've gotten blood transplants for pigs, but you give me ideas, Andrew. There's a whole new business we can get in. And when you're through with sucking all the blood from the young pigs, then you can sell the meat.
Well, and this thing is ideal for any of us that want to take up pole vaulting, say, or
That's
similar activities.
I don't know. Before I would take up pole vaulting, I would want to find the thing that strengthened my bones for when I land.
The other thing that's good about this is that we'll be using EVs in several areas, both to stay young and to also get to the supermarket.
That's right. I think they're going to have to find another name. You're right. It's that EV is already occupied.
No, seriously though, in the pharmaceutical industry, I understand they are now looking at aging as a disease. As
Yes.
it used to be that they said, well, there's nothing you can do about it. You get older, that's it. Now
Yes,
it has the disease and are going to approach it with drugs,
Yes.
correct, or something.
and one of the things they're looking at particularly is they've defined a new area of medicine, senolytics. And this is aimed at the problem of senescent stem cells that are still alive, but they're not doing their job anymore. And they have found if you can get rid of those old stem cells, then new stem cells come and all of a sudden you're rejuvenated. And I think there are already some products on the market that have some claim at doing this.
Yeah, there's a substance called urolithin
Right.
that it's quite expensive, like $100 a month to be able to get it. But it seems to be remarkably successful in things like strengthening your muscles and so on. And I'm exploring it now.
Well,
So
that is-
when we say Fred run all the way up to the top of the mountain and back, we'll know it was successful.
which mountain?
Any mountain, any mountain.
I think what they can do for the cognitive, if that works, that would be more exciting than anything.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, I'm just afraid with all these developments that they're coming, but by the time they get here, I'll be too old to make use of them. So they better hurry, I think.
You'll never be too old. You'll just never have enough money to be able to
Uh,
use.
Yeah, that's probably it. That's right.
I don't know, Richard, have you heard of a guy by the name of Ray Kurzweil?
Yes, of course.
He's one of the major.
He's a famous futurist, right?
right?
And sci-fi writer.
In 2009, he wrote a book called Transcend, where each of those letters make up it's an acronym.
Uh-huh.
But the image he had in that was that if you do something to really keep yourself in good health, to maybe get an extra 20 years, by the time 20 years come around, the technology will have moved so much that it'll give you another 20 years.
Right.
Then during that, you can get another 20 years. So you're forever keeping ahead of the curve. And I was just looking at it the other day. I bought it years ago. And an awful lot of the things that he said are in fact true right now. And so I wonder if this is what's going to be happening. And then we have to talk about what do we do with population.
well, wasn't Methuselah one of the guys that did that? That's silent.
I didn't quite hear you. You're talking about Methuselah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Richard, thanks a lot for this discussion, and thanks to everybody for participating. And once again, we'll see you again next week. Bye for now.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you. Good
Bye.
to talk.
Thank you, Fred.